everyone. My name's Susan Mara Bregman, and I'm the author of New England Sweets, Doughnuts, Bonbons, and Whoopie Pies. And this is New England Has a Sweet Tooth, a podcast that unwraps the stories behind the region's extraordinary array of baked, fried, dipped, sugared, and frozen treats. From Necco wafers to fluffernutters, we'll look at the sweets that define New England's sugary legacy. This episode is about the Needham, Maine's distinctive potato coconut candy. My guests are Malaika and Gerard Picard, who own the Maine Needham Company in Saco. Let's get started. Needhams are squares of sweetened potato coconut candy covered with chocolate. They originated in Maine around 1872 with a confectioner named John Seavey, and he supposedly named them after an evangelist named George Needham. And we'll talk about George Needham a little bit later. First, I'll talk to Malaika and Gerard about the history of Needhams and how they came to Maine.
When we first got into the Needham business, which is a separate story we'll do after this, I wanted to know as much as possible about the history of it because I immediately recognized what a treasure that was. And I searched and searched and searched, and the only source that I felt was semi-reliable was the New England Historical Society website. So anything that I have is based on that. There are other different twists on the story. So as you probably saw from our website, I never claimed that this is the actual history. It's kind of a mix of history and folklore. And I love that about it because even that has a Maine flair to it. You know, Mainers like their stories. So we're just perpetuating the story.
Yeah.
So as best we can tell, in 1872, one of John Seavey's confectioners came to him with the idea for this potato candy. And he thought it was great, decided he wanted to do it. And for no reason whatsoever, except that the preacher was popular at the time, Seavey decided to name the candy Needham after itinerant preacher at the time. I don't know why. I can't give you an explanation. So that appears to be the inception of the Needham candy. Most older Mainers will tell you that through the years, their moms, their grandmothers would make Needhams at home with the leftover potatoes. It is a well-known and documented fact that Seavey's did produce a Needham and did sell it at their stores. I know for historical fact, there was a Seavey's store in Auburn, newspaper clipping that validates that. I have packaging and photos of packaging that validate Seavey's with Needhams. Somewhere along the line, and I can't tell you where, Seavey's stopped putting potatoes in their Needhams. Whether they ever really did or not, I don't know. But any of the packaging that I have or photos of the packaging, when it lists ingredients, potatoes are not in there. But any Mainer will tell you a real Needham has potatoes in it. So we're going with that. So Seavey's held the Needhams until about, and again, this is historical fact, about 1965-ish. He sold the business to a company called Candies, I think it is, in Lewiston. Lou Rod continued selling them as Seavey's Needhams until they went out of business. And I stopped seeing them on the shelves of stores in probably the mid to late 90s. On the books, as far as I can tell, Lou Rod business did not officially dissolve until I think it was 2013. Early 2000s. Okay, so some, but I don't think that they were actively in business.
Yeah.
But no one continued selling Seavey's Needhams.
So we can't talk about Needhams without talking about George Carter Needham, who apparently was the namesake for these delightful candies. George Needham was an evangelist and a writer, and he was born in Ireland around 1844. He arrived in Boston sometime around 1870 and began preaching at the Tremont Temple Baptist Church in the city and conducted revival meetings up and down the East Coast. But how and when Needham left Ireland is really where the story becomes a little bit crazy. There's an account in the Boston Globe that said Needham became an evangelist in Dublin when he was in his 20s, and he spent time in England and Ireland until around 1868 when he sailed to North America and ended up in Boston. But there's another story about Needham that's probably apocryphal, and it's certainly colorful. And that story was reported by the New York Times when Needham died in 1902. And that story placed Needham on a ship from Ireland to South America when he was 10 years old. And he was reportedly beaten, tortured, and tattooed by the captain and crew and then left to fend for himself in Patagonia. Here's what the Times said, and I'm quoting here. He was found by a band of cannibal Indians who considered him a delicate morsel and was prepared to make a feast of him, but he was saved at the last moment by the superstition of the Indians who discovered the strange tattoo marks on his body. Somehow Needham returned to civilization after that ordeal. The Times story didn't have any details on that. And he held revival meetings in Maine, among other locations. John Seavey probably was familiar with Needham, and maybe he was the inspiration when it was time to name his new candies. It's a great story. There's no real way of proving it, and we'll probably never know. And it probably doesn't matter. With Lou Rod out of the picture, Malaika told me about a woman named Linda Lenberg, who made Needhams from her home kitchen in Norway, Maine.
A lady by the name of Linda Lenberg in Norway, Maine, she was making carrot cake and selling it to local stores. She mentions McCoochie's in Portland, just as pocket money.
Mm-hmm.
She says I would use it to go dancing on the weekends.
Side hustle.
Yeah. And so at one point, the owner of McCoochie said, "Do you make anything else?" So that's where she got the idea to start making Needhams. So on her kitchen table in her little house in Norway, Maine, she started making and selling Needhams. She was amazing at figuring out how to make things work. She's a single mom, supporting her 2 kids, and didn't have a lot of resources. And I tell you, it was just amazing to see what she had put together by the time. So that was probably 2007, I think we figured out, is when she first started that. By the time she reached out to us in 2018, she had gotten to a point in her life, she was just not able to continue the business on her own. But she'd poured so much into it, she didn't want it to just peter out. It was February of 2019, that she reached out to us and said, I've had some things happen. I have to make this change. I just can't do it anymore. Are you still interested? So for about a month, we'd go over on the weekends, Gerard especially, and watch her process. He'd see what she did, what kinds of things she had set up. He came home the first weekend so excited. He's like, "You have to come with me next weekend and see this. This is great." So I went the next weekend, and the 2 of us were like, there is so much potential here. Linda was doing it pretty much on her own. She had a little bit of side help from family or friends from time to time. And she was doing just enough to that was her livelihood.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really all that she had wanted to do with it. But she just couldn't keep it up anymore. And
So
so
was she making them by hand, or did she have equipment, or?
she had some equipment, in fact, the same equipment that we use.
Mm-hmm.
Over the years of her building the business, she would pick up different pieces of equipment to help facilitate
Okay.
creating more Needhams more efficiently.
So she had industrial size mixers. She had what's called an enrobing machine, which is the machine that covers the filling in chocolate. She had a flow wrapper machine, which is the machine that's used to individually wrap the packages. She had, that's a funny thing about that, she had started with individually just getting the plastic sheaths and having a little
Hands wrapping them one at a time.
one at a time. And so, she did a great job with the resources that she had. And literally, it was a turnkey business.
Mm-hmm.
So we said, absolutely, yes, we want to do that. On April 20th of 2019, we rented a U-Haul, drove it down to Norway, Maine, and we packed all of her equipment and boxes of supplies and baker's racks and just everything that she had into that U-Haul. Brought it to our house in Saco. It was a rainy day. Gerard had built a winch because some of the equipment was really heavy. So we used the winch to bring things down through our bulkhead into the basement. That was, we'll never forget that day.
Yeah, I bet.
And then from April 20th on, it's been Needham's full steam ahead. Gerard continued working for his brother doing construction during the week. And we did Needhams in the evenings and weekends. When we took over the business, it came with all of the equipment that Linda had and about 5 well-established accounts, including Rennie's. Rennie's had been selling Needhams ever since, at least since Lou Rods was doing it. I don't know on that, because I actually have a box that I know I've personally seen for sale at Rennie's with Lou Rod's Needhams. So Rennie's continued that relationship with us, a couple other distributors that we worked with. And so the first thing I did is reached out to those customers, established a rapport with them, quickly found out that they all loved working with Linda, but would love to be able to sell more than she was able to provide for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to, with confidence, assure them that we would be able to accommodate. And so from there, we spent 2019 really just establishing those relationships, learning the idiosyncrasies of the equipment, especially the enrober and the flow wrapper, which we still use today. They are mechanical machines from the 60s and 70s they're just still cranking out.
Nothing computerized.
Yeah. It's seriously bicycle chains and gears and motors, which is great. If it breaks down, we can find parts to fix it. So like I said, we spent that first year just kind of perfecting the process, understanding the machines, learning how to tweak things so that they work properly, and then working on workflow efficiency.
Well, back to the machines a bit. We got so intimate with the machines, we had to name them.
We named them.
And they are?
So the enrober's name is Gertie. She's just a good old steady, hardworking girl. And the flow wrapper's name is Guido. Guido is persnickety. You don't mess with Guido. If you mess with Guido, he lets you know that he was not happy that you messed with him.
The cantankerous Italian machine.
Yes. He was literally manufactured in Italy. So kind of apropos.
I asked Malaika and Gerard how Maine Needham Day came about. Here's what they told me.
Part of Needham history has to go back to the establishment of Maine Needham Day. So in 2022, again, on the date from the New England Historical Society site,
which was 1872.
1872 is when they're saying the first Needham was created.
Okay.
We figured 2022.
Oh, it's the sesquicentennial.
Yes, 150. So I reached out to our local state representative, Maggie O'Neill, and asked her to help me see if the governor would be willing to just do a Needham Day proclamation that year in honor of the 150th anniversary. That did not go through, but Maggie so loved the idea that the next year she actually put forth a bill to establish a Maine Needham Day. Annually, yeah. And so we were able to be part of that legislative process. We shared our input on that. And the governor did sign that bill into law. So September, was it the 30th?
Fourth Saturday of September.
Fourth Saturday of September is now deemed Maine Needham Day. And the heart of that day is to kind of perpetuate the Needham tradition and celebrate the potato industry in Maine, celebrate the candy retailers who help perpetuate that. And so that was the heart of what I wanted the first ever Maine Needham Festival to be. So we had a business relationship with Maine Tasting Center in Wiscasset. They are a nonprofit whose mission is to educate folks on Maine food and food producers. So it was a perfect pairing. And they said, you know what? We would love to host the first Maine Needham Festival at our property. So Sarah Gross, who is the manager there, I put together in 6 months, I think. We threw together the first Maine Needham Festival. Because the heart of it was to celebrate the tradition of the Maine Needham, we reached out to every known Maine candy maker that makes Needhams. We invited them. Of course, we invited other local artisans to be there, just in the spirit of festival and having some diversity. We reached out to Caribou Historical Society. They donated some items that had a great display of the potato industry, work stuff. So that was super fun. We have been collecting, and inspired by Linda, the original owner, some
original CB's paraphernalia.
Right. So like we have a printing plate. We have some old packaging, original packaging. We have photos of some of that stuff. So we had a nice little miniature museum display of potatoes and Needhams there. So that was super fun. And then we also did a homemade Needham contest. So we encouraged folks who makes the best homemade Needham. And the fun part about that is there were 5 or 6 of us professional Needham makers there, and we judged that contest. So that was super fun.
So Needham's, or the recipe, it's not trademarked, or it wasn't. This was sort of public domain in effect, right? Everybody knew everybody made Needhams.
Yep.
Right. Everybody's recipe is just a little bit different too.
We, as far as we can tell, we are the only company that commercially produces only Needhams. And we are the only company that invests in that historical preservation as well. So we're actually working on a pitch statement. So our mission, and I'm sure you've seen it on our website, to preserve, revitalize, and expand the tradition of the Maine Needham. So part of that vision is to make the Needham known outside of Maine and New Hampshire and New England, and get it out there. It's all of America to understand what a delicious treat this is, and everybody needs it. Now, we chose that date in September because it coincided with the Maine potato harvest, and because we wanted to have that association, we thought that was a very appropriate time to do it.
How do the ingredients come to you? Like, are the potatoes processed? Do you, like, peel them? What is the deal? And are they cooked or are they raw? How does that all work?
Because moisture content is critical to our recipe and making sure there isn't too much moisture and we have issues with chocolate or not enough moisture and not creamy enough, we need to control the amount of moisture. So we use a potato flake. So
Mhm.
we put exactly as much moisture in as we want rather than mashing our own potatoes.
Okay.
Uh, so yeah, and that recipe comes straight from Linda. She kind of tweaked it and perfected it during her years of doing it, and people loved it. Um, we have a lot of people say, "Oh, this reminds me of the ones that I used to, pick up at the store from CV's." So, like we said, everybody's Needhams are a little different.
Mhm.
Ours are known to be very sweet. Um, and there are some that are a lot more moist.
Mhm.
The different coconuts that you can use makes a difference. Um, again, the different moisture level. Some people, their thing is we use Maine potatoes and we make and
Hand mash
mash,
them and
and,
yeah,
and so that's
hand dip them.
yeah. So that's their thing.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, there's just tiny little things that
Sure.
everybody's recipe is a little different. And that was one of the things that was fun about the Needham Festival is 5 or 6 of us there, and all of our Needhams were just a little different. And
Mhm.
so you'd have people saying, "Oh, this one's my favorite," or "That one's my favorite." And what's great is everybody had one that they liked the best, you
And
know?
there was no competition. It was about to promote the Needham.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About
So what are your plans for the future? How do you see this going in, 5 years or 1 year or
Uh, one of the things that we're working toward is that expansion element of our mission statement, and we would love to see um, the distribution of Needhams, like I said, outside of New England and into the whole of the United States.
Mhm.
Uh, how big and how far that takes us, uh, we we don't have a real set goal. Um, we have from the very beginning, um, we have kind of a big overarching idea of what we love for someday to happen. And then we just go day to day and um, opportunities come up. Our business growth has been very, very organic. We focus on trying to provide the very best quality Needham that we can and to preserve that nostalgic value of the Needham.
Mhm.
Those are our two like foundational things.
I asked the Picards to describe their roles within the company.
I kind of head up all of the face to face stuff. That's why I'm doing most of the talking now.
I'm better at working with the machines.
Yeah, you're an engineer, I get it.
We tell people um, what you taste from Maine Needhams is Gerard's work, and what you see from Maine Needhams is my work.
So that's the story of Needhams, a few facts mixed with a little fiction. But where do the potatoes come from? I have a theory. As Malaika said, there's no evidence that CVs or Lou Rods added potatoes to their Needhams. But recipes for potato coconut candy started appearing in cookbooks in the early 20th century. And we know that generations of home cooks made the treats, especially around the holidays. And they included potatoes. Maybe they were thrifty cooks who were trying to stretch their household budgets by using potatoes, which, after all, were cheap and readily available. Or maybe they just wanted to use up leftovers from the dinner table. Either way, potatoes became an integral part of the Needham story. And Needhams, whether or not they had potatoes, are part of the great tradition of chocolate-covered coconut bars. New England examples include Peter Paul Mounds, their cousin Almond Joy, and Washburn's Walico coconut bars. And even Necco, through one of its predecessor companies, Wright and Moody, offered a chocolate coconut bar dubbed Needhams, but they spelled it differently. They spelled it Need-UMS. So what if Seavey's confectioner ran across one of those Wright and Moody Needhams and brought it to his boss? On the other hand, what if someone at Wright and Moody tasted one of Seavey's Needhams and decided to copy them? The names are so similar, and candy making was such a competitive industry, it's really hard for me to believe it was just a coincidence. But without proof, we may never know. Thanks for listening, everybody, and a special thanks to Malaika and Gerard Picard for sharing their stories about Maine Needhams. If you want more info about their company, the Maine Needham Company, you can go to maineneedhams.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and a review. And to catch all the latest news from me, Susan Bregman, you can visit my website at www.rednickel.com, that's red like the color, nickel like the coin.com, or follow me on Instagram at rednickelneon. And you can find copies of my book, New England Sweets, on my website or wherever books are sold. Stay sweet, New England.